Hey everybody, I'm Vera Stewart and welcome to the VeryVera Show. I'm excited today to be partnering with Okra magazine. I cannot wait every month for that magazine to come. And we're going to be talking about their new summer issue. We've got 4 things that we're going to be highlighting that will be stories in the magazine. We're going to start with the Adams Apple Company, and I've actually got Teresa Adams joining me today on the show. Then we're going to partner with Cheerwine, and we're doing a recipe with glazed ribs that is fabulous. And then Dean's Cakes has that amazing little thin layer cake. I'm going to replicate that with one of my own recipes. And then we're going to make a porch sipper with the Cheerwine. Then in Vera's Corner today, I'm going to give you some of my baking tips. So we've got so much to do today. So you know what? Teresa is here. Let's walk over and meet her. Teresa, hey.
Hey, Vera.
I'm so glad to have you. And you know what? You would think as a guest, you would get to rest, and I've had you so busy. Everybody, this is Teresa Adams. She is the founder and owner of Adams Apple Company.
Yes.
I love the name.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? It really turned out for me.
Well, and you know, tell us a little bit about that story, about how this all turned out.
Well, things do always have a way of working out. And my story goes back to, of course, as a little girl, I fell in love with apple butter. I have a vivid memory of it cooking in a copper kettle on a farm, and I was just amazed by it. So I reflected on that memory when I was in college. You know, you're a poor college student, you have no money, you want to give Christmas gifts.
Right.
So what did I do? I thought, well, I'll just make some apple butter. I got my little Mason, canning book, and made my first batch, gave it away, and so it became a tradition every year. And so soon after college, I met this handsome fella named Shannon Adams.
Oh my God.
And yes, well, we call him Shan the man. But we married, and so I went to make apple butter that year because it was still my tradition.
Right.
To put my label on it, and I thought, what do you know? We have Adams apple butter. Yes.
Unreal.
Yes. So I made it for a couple decades. Gave it away to clients and friends. And, it was like, ooh, do I get the coveted jar this year?
Right.
And I started making bread for it. So finally, in the fall of 2014, I founded Adams Apple Company, started with just the apple butter. And I rented a kitchen. I would drag in 80 pounds of apples.
Well, I see
early
your
in the
apple
morning.
peeler right there.
Yes.
And that's what you did all of that with.
I did. I peeled every single apple with this. The apple goes on there. I know that you like to use a paring knife. And, I still had one on hand. But
that worked well.
This really, you just put the apple on there, and it's a peeler, corer, slicer, does all that thing. And throw the apples in the pot. Cooked all day, added my ingredients, and then did the canning.
One of the things that I think is so interesting about this is that, as a business person, you get established with your primary product. And recently I was actually in a stribling store that just had just worlds of your things on the shelves. But you said, what also goes really well with that is a homemade biscuit. So you've diversified into a business mix. So tell us a little bit about the process of making these beautiful biscuits.
Okay, well, to me, there's nothing better than a hot biscuit with some apple butter. So I added to my product line, the Adams Apple Company, we've got a Southern biscuit mix. You can add either milk or buttermilk. And we did that today. We added, and it's so simple.
Oh, yeah.
And you can just feel like a rock star, breakfast rock star. You just add a cup of milk. We mixed it up, put it on a floured cutting board, rolled it out with my grandma's rolling pin, and a floured biscuit cutter. And I like to bake the biscuits in a cast iron.
And then
just brushed them with butter.
These are
they're so cute.
Adorable. Okay, so tell us about this.
Can you imagine Memorial Day, July 4th, little apple pies? What's more American than that? So my second product was apple pie jam. Because my grandma always made apple pie. So I have a lot of people ask me if well, is that a pie filling? Can I make pies with those? Well, they're not big enough to make a whole pie.
Right.
So I have apple pie, peach pie, and strawberry pie jam. So and this little contraption right here, you can use a pre-made pie crust, or you can make your own if you're adventurous. And we pressed it down. Even a little lattice work, yeah.
I love it.
And then squished it together and baked it. We did a little egg wash and I have cinnamon sugar on the top.
Needless to say, we could stand and talk all day. I wish we had all day to do it. We've got to go into a break. Teresa, thank you so much for sharing this. Learn more about her in the Okra Magazine Summer Edition. And when we come back from the break, we're going to get started on a Cheerwine Glazed Rib. That would be a great dessert with that for the entree. So come back with us in just a few minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back, everybody. And wasn't Teresa Adams great? I'm so excited for her. She has got so many things going on, so I really hope that you'll follow her and keep up with her story. All right, so we are doing a Cheerwine glazed rib recipe, and oh my goodness, if you've never heard of Cheerwine, if you're within the sound of my voice and you're not in the South, this drink has been a widely popular beverage for years in our area, but it makes the most amazing glaze to ribs. So as part of our giveaway, we're going to be making sure you get Cheerwine so you can make this recipe. So we had a little bit we had to do ahead, so let me walk you through that. So first of all, you're going to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. And then I did a rub for the ribs. So that was a mixture of kosher salt, brown sugar, coarse ground pepper, and chili powder. Just want to mix that up with a fork. And then I'm using a disposable pan to do this, but any deep pan that you've got to do this with, I'm going to take that rub and rub it completely over the back side and the top meaty side of the ribs. And then you're going to, if you're making a full rack of ribs, you would divide that between two pans. For the show, we just did half of a recipe. But if you've got a convection oven, you can put it on in, just one rack. If you don't have a convection oven, then you're gonna wanna rotate the pans halfway through. So put the meat side up in the pan. Then you're going to pour Cheerwine into the corner of the pan because that's almost like a poaching liquid for these ribs. That flavor is going to go all the way through it. Then cover it very tightly with aluminum foil, and you're going to roast those in the 400-degree oven for about 2 hours. Once those have roasted for 2 hours, you're going to remove them from the oven and then take an edge of the aluminum foil and, whether it's at the sink or into a Pyrex cup, which I used, you're going to remove the liquid, and that's just the Cheerwine and the excess fat from the ribs. And then we're going to get started on this glaze. So this is where I am right now with everything. So here's the ingredients for this glaze, which is amazing. All right, I've got the Cheerwine in my saucepan. I'm going to add in some cherry jam. So Cheerwine is like a cherry cola, if you're not familiar with it. It's just a great taste. So I've got the cherry jam, brown sugar, I've got Worcestershire sauce, apple cider vinegar. Let's add in some tomato paste, some Dijon mustard, and then finally some soy sauce. So this is going to cook on a simmer until it almost, it really reduces down. So I'm just going to blend this together and it'll be cooking. But I went ahead and made some because I've already gotten these ribs ready to glaze them. So let me show you what the finished product looks like here. Just look at that. All right, so let's move over here. See how nice and thick that's become? All right, so let's look at these ribs. Okay, so this little part that I'm gonna actually finish off in the broiler You could actually finish off in the grill if you wanted to. So what I'm gonna do is pour a little bit, and then I'll come back and splash it on with my pastry brush. But oh man, this will then go under a broiler for about 5 minutes just to get it nice and coated on the outside. So whether you want to, do this inside or outside on the grill, this is just a really juicy, very moist rib. All right, so when we come back from the break, we're gonna have Vera's Corner first. I'm gonna go over baking tips, and then we're gonna get started on a 7-layer chocolate cake. So this is y'all's summer picnic right here. Come back with us in just a few minutes. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite part about cooking? I always say baking. So let me share some tips today about my journey that'll make it perfect for you. To find out if your oven has hot spots, spread out several pieces of bread directly on the oven rack, then bake at 350. Keep an eye on the bread slices to see which slices get darker quicker, and those areas are your hot spots. The type of pan or baking dish you use makes a difference. Metal pans are good for most baking, but lighter metal browns more evenly than dark metal, so keep that in mind. Make sure you follow the instructions for the temperature of your butter. Deviating from this recommendation in your recipe could completely change the texture of your final product. If you don't know how to properly measure flour, today is the day. Rather than drag your measuring cup through the bag or canister, you need to lightly spoon the flour into the measuring cup, being sure not to pack the flour. Continue to spoon until the flour is mounded over the top, then use a flat spatula or the back of a knife to level off the cup. Here's how much the weight of a cup of flour can differ if you don't spoon the flour in. Finally, if you store soft cookies or baked goods with a piece of white bread, it will keep them moist longer. I hope these tips will make you a more confident baker. Okay, welcome back everybody. I hope you enjoyed Vera's Corner, just tips on how to make your baking experience perfect every time. All right, so I'm having so much fun today with Okra Magazine. I mean, we have been introduced to Teresa Adams, who's been amazing. We've learned about one of the South's best colas that can be a great sauce for barbecued ribs. And now there could be nothing more Southern than a layer cake, especially a chocolate layer cake. And what about 7 layers on a layer cake? Well, Okra Magazine has the best reputation for finding the most unique stories, ingredients, individuals, Southern products, and that's why the magazine is so worth the subscription, because you learn so much about this area. So for this, they do a thing, this is why I used to always tell the folks at work, you never know who's going to walk through the front door. Well, you never know when okra might be coming, and they happened on Dean's Cake House in Alabama, and they didn't know Okra Magazine was coming, and they were so enthralled with Miss Dean's 7-layer cake. And so we have thought that it would be great today for us to certainly want you to read about that company in Okra Magazine when you get it. But we're noted for our layer cakes. And just reading and learning more about Dean's Cake House, it was almost like I was going back in time myself, from the way they hand ice the cakes to what the inside of her kitchen looks like. Honestly, I really thought that I was back at VeryVera back in the day. So I've really had a lot of fun learning about this. So what we did today was take my yellow cake layer and make it, instead of 3 layers, we made it into 7. So let me walk you through the process of doing that. So you're gonna start with lining your 9-inch cake pans with parchment paper and then spraying them generously with Baker's Joy. Then you're gonna cream your butter and sugar for on medium speed for about 5 minutes. And I really like for you to get all of those cold ingredients at room temperature, and certainly get all of your ingredients measured out before you get started. Once it's whipped for 5 minutes, then you want to scrape the sides, and then the next thing you're going to do, you're going to have already cracked your eggs, have them in a measuring cup so that you can pour them one at a time into the batter. And then in another bowl, while those are beating, you're going to combine the cake flour, the baking powder, and the salt, and then put your vanilla into your milk because you're going to alternate the dry and the wet ingredients when you're mixing it up. So once you've done that, you let that beat for about 7 minutes, and then you're going to divide that batter between 7 pans. And it's better to put a little and then go back and add the rest to get those evenly distributed. And those layers bake in a 400-degree oven for 11 to 12 minutes or until they're golden on the edge. And you're just gonna let those, become cool before you put them on the rack, before you flip them out of the pan. All right, so on this particular cake, I decided to use my chocolate icing that went on our chocolate cake as a filling in between the layers. So I put a little bit on the pan, got that ready to go so that the layers would stick to your cardboard circle. And you're putting just a generous amount between each of those layers. And this is a cooked icing. We did it on top of the stove with butter and cocoa, added the powdered sugar and the milk, and you just beat it until it's really glossy. And I like to ice my layers cold so that really warm icing will just set up perfectly when you're doing it. Then the milk chocolate icing is what I've iced the outsides with. And I like to do a nice crumb coat, and then I go back with what we're noted for, which is the Kitty Swirl, named for Kitty Hopkins, who was part of my bakery for many, many years. All right, so we're gonna cut this cake, we're gonna lay those ribs out, we're gonna have little apple pies and all kinds of things in our presentation. So come back with us in just a few minutes and we'll see what everything might be on your picnic table this summer. Well, we are certainly ready to celebrate summer, not only with the next edition of Okra Magazine coming out for summer, but also the way this presentation looks and the fact that we're all so excited to be back with family, friends, family reunions, all kinds of things that we can do over the summer. And now you've got some great ideas for some fun, different things that you can serve. All right, so in the South, we love to have a little porch sipper, sometimes when we're getting ready to entertain. So this is another thing that you can do with your Cheerwine. This is a very easy, quick cocktail to make. So it uses bourbon, lemon juice, a couple of dashes of cherry bitters, and I'm actually going to shake that up in my shaker before I add the Cheerwine, because little known tip, if you put soda in a shaker and shake it up, what's going to happen? An explosion, needless to say. So I'm going to stir the Cheerwine now in with that. We're going to pour that over some ice cubes. Doesn't that look refreshing? We're going to add a cherry and a Myers lemon to the side of that glass. And look how awesome that looks. So that'll be a nice thing to have on hand for everybody to sip on while you're getting ready. Maybe those ribs are on the grill, getting good and together. So let's kind of walk back through what we did today. We started with the Adams Apple Company. She showed us her butters, she showed us her jams. She made biscuits and little mini pies. It's just amazing. Then we went into the 7-layer cake. And this is my yellow layers, 7 layers, which kind of represents a place where Okra Magazine went, Dean's Cakes in Alabama. So I showed you how to do this, and I'm just so excited. In fact, it makes me wish I'd been doing this all these years, how all those 7 layers look. And then we did the Cheerwine barbecued ribs. And this is just such a scrumptious recipe because a lot of times to get that consistency like you want it for ribs, where they're not falling off the bone, they're still chewy enough, but they're very moist and delicious, is that putting them in the oven in a poaching liquid, which in this case was Cheerwine, and then putting them on the broiler or on the grill for that crispness at the end. All right, so we have got a fantastic giveaway today. we are going to give away 10 gifts. One of them is going to be the grand prize. So for 9 of the winners, you are going to receive a 1-year subscription to Okra Magazine. The grand prize winner is going to get a subscription to Okra Magazine, plus a gift box from Adam's Apple Company, which will include 3 butters and 3 jams. Then you're going to also get the Cheerwine, so you can make this recipe, and a VeryVera cookbook. So what we want you to do is go to our social media platforms. We'll give you the directions on how to enter the contest correctly. And you know, certainly I want you to go out and get an Okra magazine between now and then, just to get excited about what's coming on in that issue. And you know what I always say on the VeryVera show, no matter what you do, do it in good taste. Come back and join me again next week.